we need a lawyer to weigh in on this, and we lucked out because Mark Fahleson is with us, and he's a lawyer from Nebraska, so we're going to start right there. Not exactly his topic here, but we're going to suck him into it anyway. Hey, Mark, you're on the John Fredericks Show. Great to have you, man.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me on this morning.
All right, so just quick background. Mark, a Nebraska attorney, he served as chairman of the Nebraska Republican Party from January 2009 to 2013, and he turned the whole state red +2. Every congressional office, every constitution office, every statewide office, both houses in the state legislature, all red. The governor red, the senators red. He did it, and but he's also a pretty successful attorney in Nebraska. So, Mark, here right out of the bat, right off the bat, we've got all the fake newsers running around saying, "Wow, bombshell." Mueller says it had nothing to do with collusion. Trump said he was exonerated. He's not. What are they talking about?
It's a sideshow, right? The Democrats don't want to talk about their socialist agenda, and so this is a sideshow to distract the American public's attention away from the real issues of the day, which is President Trump's agenda. Trump's done a fantastic job on the issues. I mean, Americans, if you look, the economy's going gangbusters. People are, they look at the 401ks, and as long as the economy goes well, they like what President Trump's doing, his appointments in the Supreme Court, and they don't like that. And so they're trying to create a sideshow so as to distract attention from what President Trump has done, as well as their own socialist agenda. So I don't expect, despite what the fake news says today, today's a non-news day.
Right. I mean, basically, he said from the beginning, collusion was not a legal term. So now the media is trying to spin it like Mueller saying they didn't investigate that. Well, what the hell did they spend $35 million over 36 months on? Like, what were they investigating if it wasn't collusion?
Yeah, that's the problem with the independent counsel. Often they're given these unlimited license to just go out and look, and we never really know what they're looking at. In this, the investigation, frankly, yielded not much other than what we knew already, which is that the Russians were, in fact, like other outside interests, are trying to interfere with our government. And so that was not surprising. We need to do a better job of protecting ballot security, election security here in the United States, and beef up our defenses in that regard. But the reality is nothing new was learned then. Nothing new will be learned today, despite what the fake news says.
I got a text here from Huss Beyer. One of our listeners just moved to Nebraska. He says, "Tell Mark, go Big Red," from Russ, the transplanted Husker. So
we'll take more. We have a great state, solidly red. When I took over as chairman in January of 2009, it was right after Obama was elected. The Republicans and conservatives were depressed, and so we put our targets on the Senator Ben Nelson, who's a Democrat in the U.S. Senate, and he was the final vote on Obamacare, and we made it our mission to take him out. And he decided to retire. We created an environment in the state where there was no circumstance, no situation where he was going to get reelected. We had it beat.
And that's when you elected Deb Fischer?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. So Nebraska now, all red, right? Congress,
right.
State.
Our entire federal delegation is 100% Republican. All of our statewide elected officials are Republican. We have a majority, and Nebraska is a one-house legislature. We're the only state in the country is a one-house, and we are solidly Republican in that body as well. So, it's a solid red state. We're proud of that.
And your governor?
Absolutely. Pete Ricketts is doing a great job. He's in his second term, won solidly re-election. He's term limited after that. And, I'm quite confident that his replacement 3 years down the road will be a Republican as well.
We're with Mark Fahleson. Mark is the former chairman of the Republican Party of Nebraska, 2009 to 13, turned it completely red. Mark, the China tariffs that the Trump administration has put on the Chi-Coms in order to, one, get them to the bargaining table, two, get fairness, and three, stop their plundering of our intellectual property. How has Nebraska farmers taken the trade situation with the Chinese? Have they been hurt by it, and what are they saying?
The answer is certainly there's been an impact. But Nebraska's farmers are among the most patriotic people in the world, especially here in the United States. They understand that this needed to be done. About 4 months ago, I attended a presentation by two very liberal professors at University of Nebraska, and a good audience member asked, "Did this need to happen?" And they looked at each other and they said, "Yes." So they weren't disagreeing with the steps that President Trump needed to take to try to bring our trade balance more, make it more fair. And unfortunately, Nebraska is a huge export state, especially with ag products, and so thus we had to be affected by that. But at the end of the day, our trade environment hopefully will be better, and Nebraska farmers understand they must play a role in that, and they're willing to do that.
Let me ask you this, Mark. The economic impact of the tariffs that the president has put 25% on now about 60% of Chinese goods coming to the country. You're saying that your farmers are patriotic. It's kind of like when we went to war at different times. We stopped buying the products of the people we were fighting, right? Because it didn't make any sense to be able to trade with them. So what you're saying is, yeah, they might be hurt a little bit, but their patriotism has overcome that. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. It's both anecdotal as well as empirical. I've seen polling data that among Nebraska voters that they're willing to take the hits as long as at the end of the day we get a better trade balance. And I'm quite confident President Trump will get us there. Just the Chinese have taken advantage of our country far too long. And let's face it, China is a competitor. They're spying on us left and right. They're stealing our intellectual property. They are not an honest broker in international relations, and the time has come for someone to stand up to them and say enough's enough.
John Fredericks Radio Network, we're with Mark Fahleson. Mark is a Nebraska attorney. He's also the former chairman of the Republican Party in Nebraska, returned to red. Mark, do you have any plans yourself to run for office?
No,
in Nebraska?
right now the answer is no. I'm quite content in my law practice. I still assist in politics when necessary. In fact, the National Republican, the Young Republicans Convention is going to be in Omaha this coming weekend. I'll be moderating a panel up there for that. But, we'll see. I certainly haven't ruled anything out, but right now I'm quite content to just helping Republicans in Nebraska and abroad run for re-election or election.
All right, Mark, let's switch gears to the Middle East. You recently went on a trip to Qatar in the Middle East,
Correct.
one of the Gulf countries, to get a little feel of the blockade, the embargo, if you will, the things that are going on there. Of course, that's where we have the biggest base, the biggest air base in the Middle East. It's now and has always been very critical to our operations there, protecting our interest also for Afghanistan, for various missions. Now with the Iranian situation, that's become that much more critical. Tell me about the experience, what you experienced in your trip to Qatar. What did you learn?
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to have gone to Qatar. Certainly a couple observations. One, I did not have a full appreciation of the blockade and the impact it has had on Qatar. And essentially also the false pretense under which it was brought by its neighboring countries. I'm glad that the United States and the Trump administration has understands the importance of that and has continued to strengthen our relationship with Qatar. Two, with respect to our Air Force Base and our presence over there, I did not, again, realize until I went over there the significance of that and what a tremendous presence that we do have. We did go to the base, spent some time there. And thankfully for me, the first Air Force members that we met to touring one of the planes over there, the entire crew was from Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. So these were folks based in Nebraska who were over there on a mission. And again, what a great thing that the Nebraskans are serving their country not only at home but abroad. And so it was great to see that. Third, I was just amazed at the Qatar economy. Again, they're attempting to diversify. Education City was one of the most amazing educational facilities I've ever seen, with the American universities and British universities over there having facilities and educating folks over there. Finally, it's a beautiful place. The architecture over there was just amazing. A lot of great things going on over there, and I'm very grateful that the United States has a very positive relationship with Qatar.
So when you talk about the Qatar economy, when I was there, one of the things that I did, obviously I'm in media, so it's a little bit different, but I would go walk around during the early evening at the various shops. I went to a couple of their markets. I would go to various eateries and just talk to local people with their families who were very engaging. And that's where I got the sense of how great their economy was performing. But you're right when you say there's been a transformation within the Trump administration. Remember, the Trump administration did nothing to discourage the blockade by the Gang of Four when it started, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt, because they had kind of bought into the fact that they were being told by our other allies that Qatar was funding terrorist activity around the Middle East. That was 2 years ago. Since then, no evidence has come forward that Qatar's done that. In fact, there's been a mountain of the opposite evidence, which has convinced now the president that the pretense of the embargo itself was false.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we met with a number of U.S. officials over there as well, and they confirmed that in fact, Qatar, out of all the countries there in the Middle East, Qatar is among the best to work with as far as helping to crack down on terrorism. There's open sharing agreements whereby they alert United States officials in certain bank accounts, bank transactions, things of that nature. And thus, again, our relationship with Qatar, Qatar's efforts in trying to curb terrorism in their part of the world and assisting the United States intelligence agencies in that regard has been of tremendous benefit to the United States. So despite what the Saudis may say, despite what others may say in the region, the reality is Qatar is doing more than its fair share to put a stop to terrorism in that area of the world as well as abroad.
No question about it. And as I've said before, this president might not get everything right the first time, like with the first shutdown we had, right? He doesn't get everything right the first time, but he's a very quick study, and he figures a lot of things out. That's why I think he's gone with the spending plan so we don't go through another government shutdown right before an election, which is going to be a disaster. Mark, tell me a little bit about the experience you had in the Gulf overall. How do you see that blockade being resolved? What was kind of the scuttlebutt that you've heard there?
I know they continue to have talks, so we'll see how that happens. I think it certainly places Qatar in a much better position that the United States has strengthened its position, has not bought the narrative perhaps that was put forth initially by the other countries that are blockading Qatar. Also, to the extent they were trying to stop their ability to import certain ag goods. Again, the United States has stepped up. I found it interesting that when they were unable to get milk, for example, from the neighboring countries, what did they do? The Emir simply purchased 4,000 dairy cows, pulled in, built a facility for them to be housed over there, and they're now self-sustainable when it comes to milk. I assume that will also happen with respect to other ag products, so that their people have plenty of food. And I assume the blockade, like many blockades, will fail because free markets will flow and products will get there, and hopefully the United States can be a supplier to Qatar in many respects.
Well, actually, there's an argument to say their economy is better because they had to diversify it as a result of the blockade.
Forced to, yep, absolutely.
And so it's amazing, and I think that when the blockade was done, one of the biggest miscalculations that MBS made, Mohammed bin Salman, was not only the resolve of the Qatari people, but the competence of their ministers, of their government, of the bureaucracy, just pure competence. And if you really trace it back, and you want to study this stuff like I have, you trace it back and you find out that 95% of Qataris have a minimum of a 4-year college degree. So when their ministries had to react to this blockade, well, they were staffed with a bunch of people with MBAs, master's degrees in economics, things of that, trade experts
from great United States universities.
Exactly.
That I found, the thing I found interesting was for most of them, the ones we met, it wasn't from the elitist, snobbish Ivy Coast or Ivy League schools. It was University of Arizona, Penn State University, University of Wisconsin. And so they went to the heartland of the United States for their schooling. And, again, that has benefited them. They have a solid United States education.
Right, and that's why they were able to react to this so fast. And that's what both Mohammed bin Salman of KSA and NBC and UAE, they underestimated the competence of the Qatari government and their various ministries to react to this. They really underestimated that. And as a result, their economy is better than ever, and I don't think they'll ever go back. But the blockade is bad from a humanitarian standpoint because a lot of families have been split up. There's no free travel amongst the GCC like there was. So that's an issue that's got to be resolved. But, with the egos that go on with some of those Gulf countries, it's going to be tough for them to stand down. Hopefully it'll just work itself out and eventually disintegrate. But Qatar's better off, and they've been able to revitalize their relationship with this administration because of facts. The facts is what turned the president from, when the blockade first came up. He basically, I'm not going to say he signed off on it, but he didn't do anything to stop it, right?
Correct.
And so now the Trump administration is actively seeking a way in order to mitigate that. I'm not sure they're going to find a way, but hopefully they'll be able to do that. I've only got one more minute. The final take: Can Trump win in 2020? Tell me why or why not.
He will win. As long as the economy continues at the current level or even around this level, he will win. I'm quite confident of it. The only, again, the factor that I think that we need to keep into consideration is if the economy starts to tank, and there are certainly those among the Democrats that want to harm our economy, that want to do such things that would harm our economy, so as to place President Trump in a position whereby his reelection may be in jeopardy. If the economy continues, he gets reelected, because at the end of the day, in Nebraska and in virtually every other state, while they may complain about certain tweets or certain things President Trump may do, they like what's happening. They like the economy. They look at their 401k. They like the appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court and the other federal courts, and they like it, and they're going to reelect him. And so I'm confident as we stand here today, if he wants another term, he's going to have another term.
All right, we're out of time. I want to thank Mark Fahleson for being with us. Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks, John.